Hey Clashers, there is a maintenance break today in Clash of Clans, which is going to add the balance changes already now, earlier than what was communicated by Supercell, because they said everything will be added with the new update, but they have changed their mind. Obviously, we don't know any reasoning, maybe more players are unhappy than expected or something, but long story short, we're having the balance changes happening today, which means defensive nerfs, troop changes, equipment changes, modifier changes, and I will go through the entire list with you, as well as sharing my opinion on each individual change. So let's kick things off with the first one, and that is going to start things off for the defenses, because we have quite some defenses getting nerfed to make the game overall easier. The first defense is the Ricochet Cannon. This defense is going to be changed on every single level. The first change is that the bouncing shot, the ricochet shot, is dealing now not 1% damage, but only 70 damage after bouncing, which means the first target which is initially hit is receiving 100% of the damage. The second target is only receiving 70% of the damage instead of 100. The second change here is the bouncing range, which means how much can the second target be located away from the initial target. So far, the ricochet shot would hit another target if there is another target within a range of 4.5 tiles. This is now going to be nerfed to 3.5 tiles to make sure that splash damage overall is a little bit less oppressive in the Town Hall 18 and Town Hall 17 bases. Next change is going to be the multi-archer tower. This one as well is going to receive a nerf for every single level. Overall, the attack speed is going to be reduced, which means we're going to have a nerf happening for this tower as well, which means overall less damage. The next change then is going to happen to the, let's get there, no big surprise, but Revenge Tower. Actually, there's a few changes happening to this defense. The first and second change is how quickly this defense is going to level up. So far, it receives the first level after 5 buildings destroyed, then 20, and then 40. This is going to be changed. Now it's going to be at 5 buildings, then 25, and then 50 buildings. This is where it's going to reach the final form. As well, this final form seems to be a little bit too oppressive, and it can shut down attacks completely on its own. Which means this is going to be nerfed another time with attack speed reduction, which means overall less DPS of the final form of the Revenge Tower. But that's not all. We have another defense which is going to be nerfed and buffed. But let's do the nerf first, and that is the multi-gear tower. This thing is going to be changed, and the interesting one here is that it's already way stronger than it's actually displayed in the information screen. So it might appear to some that it actually was buffed, even though it is not. Because right now you can see it has a 668 DPS. This, in reality, is 800, like roughly 800 DPS. So, yeah, it's doing a little bit more damage than it's actually displayed. But let's take a look at what exactly is going to be changed. Right now, the damage per hit, and those changes are going to happen for level 1, 2, and 3. But right now, the damage per hit should be 189, and that's going to be changed to 169. So 20 DPS minus on every single level. This obviously is going to result in overall way less damage per second, but this is overall a nerf roughly of like 10%. So multi-gear tower is going to be most likely less used in base building because the longer shot version of the multi-gear cannon is actually going to be buffed, and it's already getting used more on the higher level base building because it can prevent things like the flamethrower, which is already so strong. So what is going to be the buff right here? Well, it's just going to be having more DPS, which means instead of having a 340 DPS, this is going to be 390. Right now, you have the supercharge in here, but like those are then the base stats up to level 3. The supercharge is still on top of that. Those are the changes for the multi-gear tower, and then there's only one more final defense which is getting adjustments, and that's the Builder Hut. On this one, you have to understand how the Builder Hut works on defense, because it's repairing defenses or buildings around it when the builder has to run to those defenses to heal it. Like there's the animation of the builder running there. And this movement speed of the builder is going to be reduced to make sure that things like lightnings or fireballs are less likely to fail. Because what can happen if you put like 2 builder huts close to things like a Revenge Tower, you could hit a maxed fireball and 2 earthquakes on that revenge tower, but if you're not perfect with that timing, it's not going to go down because the builders are going to repair it, and this means it's not going to go down. This movement speed is going to be reduced from right now 28 to 20, so it's overall moving way slower. I'm not sure. I can't understand why, but at the same, there was like some type of skill expression. I think the fireball is already strong, so I can understand where the other changes are coming from, mostly to like deny a little bit of splash, but this last change, I'm a little bit confused. But either way, those are all of the changes for buildings. Let's move on now and talk about the equipments, because we have 2 equipments getting buffed. The first one is the Noble Iron for the Minion Prince, and this one is receiving quite a few buffs. You will let me know in the comments if you think it's going to be viable or not. I just think the Minion Prince has so many solid equipments that it's really hard to fit in. But let's talk about the changes. The first change, which is going to happen, is the range of those shots. It's going to obviously scale down, but it's going to have a 100 tile, like not on a tile, but like the current value is like 1,100 in range, and the new one is going to be 1,200. So that's the first, the change, like the range there. The second one is going to be the amount of long shots you have. On the max level, you have currently 7. This is going to be increased to overall 10. So quite a big change. So overall, like 43% more shots. That's quite a bit, to be honest. The next thing as well, which is going to be buffed, is the passive attack speed. It's going to gain 1% on every single level, which means instead of having 17 on the highest level, it's going to be 18%, which is a nice change. But hey, like overall, I'm just not sure where exactly this equipment can fit in, like strategy-wise. The next equipment which is getting a buff is the Giant Gauntlet, and this one is kind of reverting a nerf which we had a few years ago, and that is the damage reduction. Back then, the damage reduction was nerfed, and this nerf is kind of getting reverted. Now it's going to have 5% added on every single level, which means on level 27, we have, instead of having 55%, is going to be 60% damage reduction. And then on the level 1, instead of 15, it's going to be 20%. And then in between, obviously, everything is getting scaled accordingly. As well as the damage duration is going to be increased, which means on the highest level, instead of having 17 seconds, now it's going to be 19 seconds. And then on the lowest level, instead of 12, it's going to be 14-second duration of the ability. Then we have one indirect change to an equipment, which is the action figure. And that is not a nerf or a buff or anything. This is just the Warden right now. It's really likely that he's going to follow the Giant, because the Giant has overall 50 housing space and a lot of hit points. So now it's less likely that the Warden is going to follow the Giant instead of following like 2 heroes or something. So that's going to be changed with those balance changes as well. Let's move on now to the next thing, which is going to be a pet. The only pet which is receiving a buff is the Poison Lizard. The first change which is going to happen, and that's going to happen for every single level, is the range is going to be increased. Currently, the range is 350, and it's going to be increased to 450. That's kind of like the tile, like within the code, those are the numbers, so you can roughly estimate on like how much of an impact that's going to be. I think it is going to be nice. It's not going to be having the biggest impact. I just think other pets usually have a better ability. But to make the pet even more viable, maybe, they're going to increase the hit points. On the highest level, instead of having 1,950 hit points, it's going to be increased to 2,300 hit points. On level 1, obviously the changes are scaling in between, but on level 1, it's going to be 1,250. That was the old value, and now the new one is going to be 1,400. So overall, as well, a nice little buff. I'm not sure how useful it's going to be, but I guess time will tell. But yeah, it's going to be improved. That's pretty much it for now. Let's move on though, because Supercell wants to make blimps more viable, because right now it's kind of rough right now in the game when it comes down to attack openings. We have the Roy Gem in charge, we have the Fireball, but a lot of the blimps kind of disappeared, like Super Archers, Super Wizard blimps, and that's why they're going to increase the hit points of those troops by a little bit to make sure that they're surviving more traps. The Super Archer is the first one, so since there is no new level yet, if I'm not completely wrong right now, but there's no new level yet, which means the increase is nice, but obviously there's going to be more impactful eventually as there is a new level. But on level 13, we have a hit point increase from 625 to 685, which is overall quite nice because this means the super archers are going to survive some more traps. But especially for the super wizard, we are going to have quite a nice buff because instead of having 700 hit points, they're going to have now 925 hit points. This is then scaling as well down to the lower levels, but overall for those two troops we have hit point increase overall. The next change, which I personally like quite a bit, is the super minion. The super minion is getting quite some love, to be honest, because the first change is that the long shots, instead of having 7, the super minion now has 8 long range shots, and the next one, instead of having a tile range of 10, is going to be 10.25. Why exactly is that changed? Well, most of those long range defenses have exactly 10 tile radius, which means they are having the same range as a super minion, so the super minion are getting taken care of and taken down by a lot of those defenses. But with this buff, this means super minions can outrange those defenses, so they're staying safe for way longer, and they can safely actually get their long shots out and deal the damage necessary. So that is as well a really nice change to make the super minion even more viable, especially in things like Flameflinger or the Siege Barracks. The super minion are a really, really great choice to go for. Next one is the regular troops. Let's go in there next. We have as well the first troop which is getting a buff, which is interesting because we're going to take a look in just a second what are the most common strategies within the top 200 right now. And then we're kind of maybe for a surprise because throwers are already really solid. In high legends, people are using it with the lightnings together, for example, and they're already really, really solid. So they're receiving a buff for the hit points and for their damage. The hit point increase is going to be 100 damage on 100 hit points on every level. So on level 1, 2100 to 2200 hit points. On level 4, as you can see it right here, because all of those numbers are still from the live game, like before the balance changes. Instead of having 2800 hit points, this is now going to be 2900, as well as the damage is going to be increased by 10 on all of those different levels. The same as the movement speed is going to be increased as well for the throwers to make sure that time fails are less likely. So, yep, throwers are going to be crazy strong. Like, literally, really, really good. Next change, and that might be not a big surprise, and I want to make sure that you know, I always said that I think they should not be nerfed, but apparently Supercell decided to nerf the Meteor Golem. What exactly? Well, that's a big one. So, they pretty much reverted the buff the Meteor Golem has received before they were launched. Which means, now on the highest level, they have not 19,000 hit points, but instead 16,000. So minus 3,000 hit points, which obviously is going to have quite a big of an impact. I will explain in just a second why this changed and what the thought process is here. But again, I just want to make sure, even though I don't like them, I was always one of them. I was one of those players who said, I think they should just keep it and just make everything kind of equally strong. But hey, apparently in the regular game, like without any modifiers, Meteor Golems were just too strong, so they had to be toned down a little bit. So the first change is the 3,000 hit points less. If you want to have a comparison, right now the level 2 Meteor Golem has 17,000 hit points. So Meteor Golems on level 3 are going to be weaker than the current level 2 Meteor Golems. As well as the damage is going to be reduced by 100 on every single level. That is going to be that change. Then there's going to be one more. Wait a second, where is it? The Electro Titan. Electro Titan as well is going to receive a nice buff of 300 hit points. So instead of having 8,400, it's going to be 8,700 hit points. That's it for all of the troops and the exact balance changes, but there's one more, and that is the modifiers. Because the thought process here from Supercell was, hey, we want to make sure Meteor Golems are less oppressive, but to make sure that they're still viable and the 3,000 hit points are not completely killing them, the nerf, we want to make sure that the modifiers are made easier. So overall, that's kind of balanced it out when you compare those numbers. Because let's go through them. First off, the esports mode, no changes. Which means for the pros, nothing would change. Esports is going to be tough, and it's going to be even tougher maybe because Meteor Golems are maybe not as viable anymore. Next one is going to be the Legend Modifier. Legend Modifier is going to have a lot of changes. The first one, defenses only deal 15% damage. Defensive, like plus 15%. Defensive heroes, plus 15% as well. And attacking heroes, plus 5%, or like minus 5% instead. So this is like a really huge deal for multiple reasons, especially that the offensive heroes are not nerfed as much anymore. The reason for this is that all of those hero charges right now, Warden charge, Royal Champion charge, they're suffering obviously quite a bit from those minus stats on offense, because having your heroes deal 5% less damage in a mass Meteor Golem attack, it's not as significant. But if you're having a 3-minute Warden charge, the 5% minus DPS debuff is making the difference between a time fail and a 3-star. So having now this change is hopefully going to make Royal Champion charges and Warden charges more viable again, which is overall a good idea. As well, having not as much damage on the defense with only 15% plus means that the Meteor Golem nerf of the 3000 hit points is not going to come in as crazy, and is going to put them closer to the other troops, so more things should be viable again, which I think overall is a solid and a smart change. Next one, we have obviously Master getting adjusted. Instead of having 14% for heroes and defenses, it's going to be 10%, and the attacking hero debuff is completely removed. Then the last one with the expert modifier, instead of having 7%, it's going to be 5%, and then as well the attacking hero debuff is as well completely removed. All of those balance changes are going to happen today. I think there are a lot of good changes in there. Some of them are a big question mark to me. I'm confused that Meteor Golems are getting nerfed and not, for example, the Electro Dragons. Because let's take a look at the most used strategies right now in the top 200. We can already see December season on the left side. It was pretty much all about Meteor Golems with totems in different versions. But right now in January, you can already see the balance changes had a really big impact. Only 37% Meteor Golem Fireball, which is not as much, to be honest. I think 37%. We had crazier metas. Root Riders were already way above that. They were like 60, 70 something percent. E-Dragons are nearly as much used as Meteor Golems, which is kind of crazy, and they're not getting changed. So expect an Electro Dragon meta, which we haven't had in years, which is kind of crazy to think about. But at the same time, they can be countered somewhat decently with like base building, air skeleton traps, and as well having deeper core Black Mines and such, so that will be interesting, that is for sure. And then the Mass Meteor Golem is going to be way harder to use with those balance changes. But overall, I think there's going to be quite some variety. The Zap Thrower strategy is going to thrive with those buffs as well. I think that's going to be great, especially the movement speed for the throwers is going to be nice. So overall, I think a lot of good changes. I'm looking forward to those balance changes and how everyone is going to like them. We're going to take a look at the top 5 strategies after the balance changes tomorrow. But let me know down below in the comments what you think about the changes, how you feel about them. I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next Clash video. Until then, see ya, and bye-bye.